Hi everyone, if you're watching or recording, do fast forward. I'm going to go with 2 minutes. Or a little longer. We're going to talk about the puppy and what's been going on here. Oh, and of course the doorbell rings. Oh my gosh. Okay, I was going to say, do you want to ask Silly to go up? Oh, for those of you who don't know, I have Silly Girardi in the house. She's sitting behind me out there, behind the banners, slaving away at kits for virtually ever crafting. Oh my gosh. So here we are. Oh, we've been gone for 2 weeks and like literally 2 weeks. What is that about? When was the last time I went 2 weeks without going live? So thus, I'm wondering if we should even be counting last week. Last week would have been week 95. And so is this really week 95 or is this week 96? I don't know. Somebody tell me what you think. If you're out there watching, do say hi. Do give us a little like. And what? I'm sorry, is Twitch coming up or no? Okay. So Andy reports that everything's up. So we are simulcasting on 4 channels today, or 5 channels now. We've added Twitter. And it's official. Twitter is up and running. I can see it. Well, I say I can see it. Wait a second. What happened here? let me hit the button again. Yep. Twitter is actually up and running, believe it or not, if you're out there on Twitter land. And we have Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and the Q Talk page on Facebook also. I'm sorry, Andy? Okay, so Andy's saying that Twitch is back to the problem we had a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately that's out of our hands. So there it is. Okay, so what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks, we were at Tuscarora Lapidary Society. That was a lot of fun. Teaching in person, starting to get back to the in-person teaching despite Omicron, and that's pretty exciting for me. And we just try to keep each other safe. And as far as I know, there's not been a super spreader. Fast forward from Tuscarora. By the way, we did end it so well that we will be back next January. I might go back in the fall, but that has not been determined yet. There's too many things going on. I'm still trying to wrap my head around other things that I am obligated to. And then fast forward last weekend, so that was 2 weekends ago, and then last weekend we did metal immersion in Pennsylvania, in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. It was a new facility for us, a new location. Everybody loved it, but we might not be going back there because they are under renovation, so we'll see how it goes. However, all things being good, Sarah Thompson joined us for the first time from Washington State. She does all the wire weaving and the fusing of wire weaving. That's Sarah Thompson. And she had a great time, so she committed to coming next year. And Sully Girardi joined us for the second time, and she is also committed to coming back next year. So I'm pretty excited about that. So mark your calendar. It's going to be Martin Luther King birthday in January 2023. We had a pretty good crowd as far as I'm concerned. We were about half of what we were 2 years ago, but given the pandemic and everything that's going on, I was really pleased with it. I know Sully and Sarah are both pleased with it too, so we're anticipating next year to be even bigger and better as we research a new place to go. So we'll see, or a new place to have a new place to have the event, but it'll still be in Pennsylvania, out in the greater Philadelphia area. We're starting planning on a second metal immersion this year. It'll probably be September in Stevensville, Maryland. We're going to fine-tune those details coming up here in the next month and let you know once we make that decision. So if you're thinking about doing something in person or doing a get-together, you can maybe think about doing that one. But Sully will be joining me, and I'm still trying to talk Sarah into that. We'll see who the wire instructor will be. That said, okay, what else? Puppy, yes, Puppy was out for 2 weeks. His daddy totally missed him all 2 weeks, and he got his manhood taken away. But he survived, and he did really well. Yes, we all missed him. Thank you for anyone and everyone who is asking out there about said puppy. He is upstairs with his cone of shame still because he's still eating at his dew claws that were also taken off. So there's the update on Puppy. So hopefully none of you guys out there had any problems with the storm this past weekend. For those of you who were at Metal Immersion, we're home safe. It was sort of sketchy for a little bit there with the weather, with the nor'easter that came in. We decided to go ahead and play it safe and delayed by 1 day of returning home. And I'm really glad, because the drive home yesterday, believe it or not, was really sunny. It was great to have the sun glistening on all the snow through Pennsylvania. And it was also nice that you didn't have to have all this inclement weather coming down as you're driving. And for me, I had 4 people in the car. You know, I had Sully and a couple other friends, and of course Titus in the car. And you know, it's always a little scary to have people in the car and taking risks. So we're home, everybody's home and safe, and hopefully everybody who attended Metal Immersion is safely home too. Give me a shout out if you think about it, and let me know that you made it home. Okay, that said, we're gonna have a really quick, easy day today talking about cutters. I know I've been pushing this subject around for a little bit. It has been sort of my filler for, I don't know, 3 months. That has never come to fruition, and I decided to go ahead and do it today because glad we did, because we just got back last night, and it keeps it a little bit easy for me. So people ask me all the time about which cutter to use, when to use it, and what you can use it on. So as I was thinking through what I wanted to discuss today, I thought, you know what, it's not just about cutters, but it's also about cutting. So we're going to talk just a second or a few minutes about sawing. What's the difference between sawing and cutting with shears? Well, and when do you choose which method to use? That said, so for me, sawing, I usually saw when the design is intricate and I can't do it with a pair of shears. But my go-to is always shears, because it is the fastest way to get to the point. So if I can do it faster with a pair of shears, that's where I'm going. But usually, like, let's say you have a flower with petals, chances are you're not going to be able to cut it, round petals anyway. If you have pointy petals, you can probably cut it with a pair of shears. But with round petals, I definitely need to use a saw. And the smaller you go, the harder it gets with a pair of shears. Another thing too that is the determining factor when you use a saw and when you use a pair of shears is how thick the metal is. If you don't have the hand strength to use a pair of shears, then you're going to want to saw it. Okay, the heavier the saw blade, by the way, the thicker the metal is, the heavier the saw blade that you want to use. That will make life a lot easier for you, and it'll go a lot faster instead of using a really thin saw blade. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question there. Additionally, if you're doing any kind of piercing, you're not going to be able to cut it with a pair of shears. So we'll just take that off the table. You definitely need to saw it. Now, for some people, though, one of the disadvantages of cutting with a pair of shears is it it warps your metal, and they are adverse to that. And what I mean is, I'll show you. What it means is, if I was to cut here like this and just cut a shape, you'll see that my metal is warped. It's not flat. So you'll have to put it on a bench block and flatten it. And you can also see on the other side, definitely, the small piece is totally wrinkled and warped, right? So that said, if you were to use a saw on that, you shouldn't have any warping, unless of course it's a really thin piece of metal. So that's why some people are averse to using shears. Okay, that for me boils down to the technician. What the difference in how one person does their work versus how someone else does their work, right? Again, if you've been in my classes, I like to do it the fastest way possible. And so if it's fastest to use a pair of shears, there it is. Okay. Lastly on that, one more note on that is some people are just saw adverse, right? They don't like to saw. I love to saw. So sawing intricate designs is fun. So I don't have a problem with that. So therefore, if you really hate sawing, use your shears where you can. And sometimes even if you have little intricate designs, you can still cut some of the outside parts and then saw it into like the little the little grooves and whatnot, and that will eliminate some of your sawing. Okay. So of course, with cutters, these are bezel shears. They're German. By the way, all these items I'm showing you today is on our website at theribbonbeater.com. I've posted links, and Andy has, and into the description of the videos, Andy has posted links to the chat of the videos. And if you have any questions, do shout out. Andy is in my ears, he always says, to tell me what your questions are, because I can't see the chat. Now I'm completely blind. I don't know, they upgraded or did something to the system, and I can't see any of your chats anymore. So, okay. Bezel shears. Bezel shears, you know, these are the German ones, and a lot of people have different preferences on bezel shears. I hear a lot about the Joyce Chen shears. Yeah, Joyce Chen, you know, the kitchen stuff. I have used them, and they're very nice. My only issue with them is they were designed for kitchen, not metal. So I prefer to just stick to my German cutters, and they've lasted a really long time. You can see this one is really beat up. I've had these for at least 12 years, and they're still going. So first question I always get is, what are they rated for? How heavy can you go? And the answer to that question always is, how strong are your hands? The reality is most people, their hands aren't that strong, and you can only get up to about a 22, maybe 20 gauge. But here I have a piece of 18 gauge, and I can absolutely cut it because my hand strength is a little bit stronger. That's all. So typically, again, you know, I don't think I've ever seen ratings on shears because most people can't get through anything heavier than a 20 gauge. Some people can get through that 18 gauge. Okay, so that's the answer on the rating on shears. Now with the shears also, they come straight, and I think you can see that, straight or curved. And the question always is, you know, really what's the difference? So the difference is, and when do you use what, right? So the difference is with straight shears, you can always cut straight, duh. But straight shears, as you saw here, can cut a curve, right? But with curved shears cut curves very easily, but it cannot cut straight. It's nearly impossible to create a straight line with curved shears. You'd have to do little tiny cuts like this at one section at a time to even get anything straight. Wow, I actually did pretty good there. Anyway, I don't think I've ever bothered to try cutting anything straight with the curved shears. But what's nice about having curved shears is just making cutting curves a lot more easily. So if you find yourself that you're cutting a lot of shapes like hearts and circles and ovals, you might want to invest in a pair of curved shears. So that's the difference between straight shears and curved shears, and what they're rated for. Okay, same thing, the curved shears, same thing with cutting heavy metal. It's all in the hand strength. So don't know how strong you are. That said, let's go to our cutters. Okay, so you know, I always refer to my wire cutters as side cutters. I don't know why. Maybe it's because that's how I was taught, or what they've always been for me. Now, what are really the differences between our cutters and the cutters that you find in, let's say, your garage or the hardware store? Well, the difference really is whether or not they bevel the wire or have a bevel cut. Now, typically the cutters that you're finding in the hardware store, if you have a piece of wire, when you cut it, it pinches it, so it's beveled on both sides of that wire. Whereas what you're using in jewelry, a lot of times it's only somewhat beveled on both sides, and more beveled on one side than the other, and it cuts a little bit nicer. But again, cutters for me, like with anything else, even shears, it's you get what you pay for. You know, we talk a lot about knives in the kitchen and how, you know, if you've ever used a pair of Wusthof knives, oh, dream. But you're paying $100 a knife, and it's really dreamy to use versus one, say, that you picked up at the dollar store. That knife is never going to cut the same as say a Wusthof. Same here with cutters. You get what you pay for. The more expensive they are, typically, the better they are. Okay, so that said, let's talk about the different ones. Okay, so here I have a blunt end cutter. And I always tell people when you're buying tools, if you're just starting out, your first investment should be a good pair of cutters. So for me, I remember when I first started making jewelry, this was my absolutely first investment. I paid $50 for these cutters. This is not something that I have on the site because they're blunt end cutters, and I don't know what I was thinking when I bought these in the first place. I rarely ever use these. But okay, let's talk about them though. They were $50, right? They cut really well, and but they don't do what I need them to do because of the shape for them. And honestly, I'm not completely clear why you have blunt end cutters, except for maybe cutting off prongs. Because when you put a piece of wire in, look, I'm like, can you see that? It gets caught right there. You can't go any further unless you go out to the side, okay? And I have to tell you also, I know, the things that we do to our tools. This one actually had to be grinded down on the side because Q decided at one point while she was making jewelry that she would use her cutters to cut a paper clip. Yeah, don't do that. Definitely do not do that. And I'll explain why here in a sec, but you do not use any of your tools on steel of any kind. You got it? It's sort of like using your mother's good scissors, sewing scissors on paper. Oh yeah, that's death. That is, a walk on the walk on a plank if you use that for your mother. Okay, so that's what a blunt end cutter looks like. Not real practical, but that was my first investment. My second investment were these. Okay, so these are the Lindstrom Ultra Flush Cutters. Okay, we don't have the Ergo ones on our website because at some point I decided, what the heck? Why do you want to pay that much for those? Although I did at one point. And these are the same ones, except they're about $20 less. Okay, so that said, Ultra Flush Cutters. Again, they're side cutters, of course, or wire cutters. And what's the difference between an Ultra Flush and a flush and just a regular cutter? It is how, of course, flush the cut is. So basically, when you have a piece of wire, like so, can you guys see that? Let me see. Let's put it under a piece of paper. Okay, that's not a good piece of paper to use. Oh, I know. Here we go. We'll use this one. Nope, not that one either. I use so much scrap paper around here that everything is freaking scrap right now. Bad. Okay, so here we go. So here you can see that the end, I don't know, can you see that? I'll zoom in some more. Can you see that? Okay, the end is pointed. That's the beveling that I was telling you about, okay? But if you're using a flush cutter, the end will be flush, like so. You see? So if you're looking carefully, oops, that rolled right off. I'm gonna do it one more time. If you're looking really carefully, you'll see that this side is flush, but this side, you see, has a bevel on it. Yep, there's that bevel. So when I cut it, it pinched the wire. It had to. There was no choice. So a flush cutter will do an okay job of making this side, the good side, somewhat flush. An ultra flush gets it really flush. So that's the difference between ultra flush and flush. But then if you have a pair of cutters that are, shall we say, low end, like these, both ends will not, see, this one didn't even cut all the way through. Both ends will have a bevel on them, so there's no flush anything to them. Okay, so that said, that's what an ultra flush and a flush is. We only sell the ultra flush because I'm sort of at the point of, what's the point? of buying a flush when you can buy an ultra flush for a few dollars more? You might as well get the best, right? So that's what the ultra flush is. All right. So now, something else to point out here is when you buy cutters, a lot of times what you'll see is inside, it will state how heavy of a gauge you can go. So this can go up to a 20 gauge because it goes up to a 0.8 millimeter. Okay. And then this one, let's go to these bad boys. You know, I love these. These are the Keibas. They're from Japan. And they go up to a 2.3. So that's just above a 12 gauge wire. Okay. So the thing is, you need to be a little bit aware of the rating on these cutters because you're going to ruin them if you, like if I use this on a 12 gauge, oh, in enough time, the tip will break off. That's what it is. And I'll tell you a quick story. So I never paid attention to this until a few years ago. And, you know, I'm like, oh, Lindstroms, they're the best cutters out there. Oh, you know, and I'm using it on everything. Oh, you know, 14 gauge, 12 gauge, yeah, it's all the same to me and I just use it. And then bink, it's broken. The tip is gone. I've since thrown it away, otherwise I'd show you. Anyway, so I was at a show where Lindstrom was actually there demoing. So I immediately from my class walked these cutters over to them and said, hey, your cutter's broke. What the heck? And the guy says, what were you cutting? And I said, oh, 14 gauge. He goes, well, that's why. Did you not notice on the inside? It tells you can't do that. I'm like, oh, oops. Tail between my legs. Sorry, I'm out of here. But the guy was so nice to me. The rep from Lindstrom was so nice to me, and he knew I was an instructor, so he gave me a replacement pair. How cool is that, right? So yay, Lindstrom. Anyway, so be aware that you cannot cut heavier, and if your cutters are breaking, that's part of the reason. And of course, if your cutters are breaking, it's also what are you cutting with them? Back to that paper clip. Okay, so if you look really closely here, I keep these around. These are really cheapies that I've had for years, and I keep these around for the times when I need to cut things like steel. Oh my gosh, right? So you see that? You can see all the little dinks inside of there. So instead of ruining my other cutters, I keep these around and cut with those. But let me also point out, okay, so if you were really paying attention, you would see that my Keibas right here are ruined. I did decide to go ahead and cut some steel with this, but it was all of 24 gauge, and I was thinking, it's 24 gauge. This is rated for like 11 gauge. This should be fine. Well, obviously not. Okay. And I'm a little bitter about this, but I'll get over it one of these days. This is recent. This only happened a couple months ago. So there is another tip for you. Don't use steel on any of these cutters, right? But if you are wanting to cut heavy gauge metal, this is the go-to. I mean, this is my absolute favorite cutter. And anyone who's ever cut with these, this is, what is this? This is 12 gauge. Look how easy that is. I can just nip it away. And anyone who's ever borrowed these from me at a class has purchased them. It's the same thing that happened to me. I was somewhere and someone loaned these to me. Oh yeah, I had these ordered in and selling them a week later because they are fantastic. And also another point here too is the ones that we have on our website are actually the flush ones. I didn't even know when I bought these. Ooh, maybe that's why I get to upgrade these. Okay, so when I bought these, I did not buy them as flush because I didn't realize they actually came with choices. So back to, why would you bother buying the ones that aren't flush, right? When it's only $2 more. So the ones that we have on our website are actually flush. So I'll go talk to Andy, see if he'll let me upgrade these. Anyway, so that said, okay, so if you are cutting things that are very heavy or steel, you need to make an investment into cutters that are designed for such. So these are carbide cutters. Do you see that? There's the insert, okay? You can sort of see it's sort of funky. And these are meant to cut things like paper clips. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna take a risk, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. Hold on. I believe I have a paper clip here somewhere. Maybe not. Let's see. I don't have a paper clip. Why don't I have a paper clip? Okay. Let me see what these are rated for. I don't even know. Nothing on the inside, but hey, Sully, you got a paper clip?
No.
Hold on. I'm gonna go get one. So a question out there is, can I file my Keiba? I probably can. You probably should be able to file any of these cutters to resharpen them. It's a matter of knowing how. I'm not completely clear I know how. So Janet, for asking that question, does Dick know how? I'll bring it to him, her husband. Okay, so here's a paper clip. Let's cut it. Let's see what happens. Oh, still good. Look at that. Oh, maybe you didn't see that. See? Still good. So I'll tell you another story. So we were doing a tool demo at one point at the store, and we were talking about how you can't use just any cutter on piano wire. Piano wire is another one of those, like, it's totally out there. Don't go using your cutters on piano wire, unless of course you have the Carbide cutters. Well, we were passing it around so that people can see the difference. And actually, if you're looking here, these are my original Lindstroms. You'll see, I know, 10 years later, I still know the story. You'll see where somebody decided to try to cut piano wire with my Lindstroms. Yeah. So anyway, back in the day, you could send this back to Lindstrom and have it refinished and sent back. Not anymore. That business has gone away. I don't know. They changed everything. But if you want to cut memory wire, that's another one that is made of steel. You definitely want a good pair of cutters like these, or something that was made specifically to cut memory wire or steel. Okay, so that's a story there. Oh, wait. I'll show you these. So these are the crappy ones. You see, it cuts. It doesn't cut well, and lo and behold, I have another dink in my cutters. So if you have a pair of cutters that you have ruined, that's another tip for you. If you've already ruined the cutters, do just hang on to them so that you can keep ruining them and using them on things like your paper clip. So Miss Sully, who's sitting behind me, were you going to come make an appearance and say hello? So Sully is here visiting from Austria. She's extended her visit, and I'm very happy to have her in my home, in my studio, and we're going to hang out this week and mostly do some work. I'm not so sure that there's so much fun happening out here. But in any case, we're going to do a Zoom along on Friday and sort of take the day off. So if you are in your studio, if you're in your studio and you want to join Sully and I'll post a Zoom link here today, tomorrow, tonight. She'll remind me. Anyway, so you having fun here?
All right, as always. Right. No, it's a thrill. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you.
Wait, what did Andy say? Okay, sorry. You're rubbing against my microphone back there.
I'll disappear then.
Okay, well, anyway, that's Sully. She says hi. We're gonna, anyway. So Zoom along with us on Friday. We're just gonna hang out and continue to work. We're working. I don't know about what you guys are doing, but we're definitely working all week long until I boot her out of here. That said, okay, so back to cutters. What else do I have to show you? I think that's it. Okay, so in review, you have blunt end cutters, great for cutting off prongs and things like that, but you can definitely use your side cutters. Side cutters and wire cutters are the same thing. You have flush cutters, ultra flush cutters, which cut wire flush wires. Okay, is that a word? Anyway, one other point too. When you're cutting, you see there's two sides. The one that goes in, concaved, and the one that is flush on this side. always keep the flush side to the side that you want to keep. And that's how it is flush, okay? So then you have flush cutters, and then you have heavy duty cutters for anything that's, I would say for anything that's 16 and heavier, okay? And then you have, oh, I did not point this out. If you're on a budget, these Xuron cutters are really nice too. They are flush. They're not the best flush, but they are very nice. Oops. But they are very nice. And I'd have to look up the rating on it. I did not look up the rating on this one. But for anyone who's on a budget, I think these are in the $25 range as opposed to the $45 range. Okay. And then you have the Carbide cutters, which can cut steel. Of course, these can cut silver and copper and all that good stuff too. But if you're looking for something that's cutting steel, paper clips, piano wire, memory wire, you definitely want to invest in something like this. Okay. So apparently Janet's husband has an answer for us regarding sharpening the cutters, and he said he would use the sharpener from the lawnmower blade sharpener. Yes, because we all have that in the garage, don't we? I can only think of one other person who might be watching who might have some. Larry. Anyway, so that said, all right. So I'm glad if you're out there, say hi. I do make a comment. It is very good for our algorithm. Do give us a like, please. I've met a lot of you when I go out to my in-person classes. Say, oh yeah, I've been watching. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't know that. You never give us a like, so please give us a little like. It's really important to us, and so that we can keep this going. And by the way, give me a comment on, should this be week 95 or should this be week 96? I don't know. Let's think about that for a second. But anyway, I'm going to be back next Monday. I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm still trying to wrap my head about being back all together. And we're doing a Zoom along this week. Oh, I know. We pushed the Zoom State Your Heart until the following Friday. Not this Friday, but next Friday, because I needed a little extra time, and it looks like it's a better schedule for everyone who has registered. So there is still time to register. Your kits are going to go out tomorrow, so you'll have it in time for the Zoom class next week, okay? In the meantime, I hope the weather is good for you wherever you are. Stay warm out there. We got 1.5 feet of snow here. That's what we came home to. Wow, everything is white. Titus is loving the snow. Yep, he's going out there and enjoying himself, which is great. And we're going to try to keep warm. We're going to put in a fire and go back to work. All right, have a great rest of the week. We will see you on Friday at the Zoom Along. All right, have a good one.